In this week's episode 57 of the Global Travel Planning Podcast, Doug and I share our top 10 tips for first-time visitors to Europe. Practical advice based on over 50 years of travel experience. And of course, don't miss our top tip at the very end of the podcast. Hi and welcome to the Global Travel Planning Podcast. I'm your host, Tracey Collins, who with my expert guests will take you on a weekly journey to destinations around the globe, providing travel inspiration, itinerary ideas, practical tips and more to help you plan your next travel adventure. Hi and welcome to episode 57 of the Global Travel Planning Podcast. This week, Doug and I are here to share our top 15 tips for first-time visitors to Europe. We are asked a lot about our travels. We have travelled extensively throughout Europe.
We really have, over many years.
Over many years. I am in my late 50s. Doug's
23.
He wishes. Not quite 23. But anyway, so we've spent a lot of time exploring Europe.
Yeah.
We have travelled for short times, like weekends. We've travelled for weeks at a time. I've actually lived in a couple of European countries. I lived in France and I lived in Switzerland, and obviously we both lived in the UK. And you spent some time in Norway.
A few months in Norway.
So as well as actually kind of travelling, we have actually lived in some of the countries too. I think what's also worth saying is that we've tried all methods of travel. So we've flown, we've driven, we've taken the train, which is obviously our preferred method of travel.
Cable car, boats.
Yeah, we've tried everything.
The only thing we've not done is skateboard.
I think that's, I can't imagine me on a skateboard. So we've taken long and short trips. Like I say, obviously, when we lived in the UK, a lot went through school holidays. So sometimes we'd go weekends if we could, or we'd go for weeks away. Yeah. Obviously, chasing the sunshine.
Most definitely.
But saying that, we did also spend some time travelling over winter quite often as well.
My birthday is in winter as well, so that was all.
Yeah, and we've kind of done it on all budgets as well. We've done it kind of trying to be on a tight budget. We've done it where we've splurged a bit more as well. And also, as I say, different times of year, different events.
It's a different travel experience.
Yeah, so I think there's very few countries left in Europe now that we actually haven't visited.
Or passed through at the very least.
Yeah. So I think I'd like to actually get the last couple like we've got. I think Bulgaria and Romania.
Andorra is not been.
So there's a few that we still need to do. But so if you are planning wherever you're in the world, so if you're in the States or if you're in Australia or if you're in Singapore or if you're in South America or if you're in South Africa, wherever in the world and you're planning a trip to Europe, these are our top tips to you based on multiple years of experience.
Definitely.
Okay, so I've got 15. So I will number each one, give you what the tip is, and then we'll just have a short chat about that. So first thing to do is choose your timing carefully. And we say this as well about when we talk about the UK and the UK Travel Planning Podcast as well. Yeah. Think about when, obviously you may have to do it around when you have your holidays, like spring break, or when your kids are off school or when you have your holidays. But if you can and have some flexibility, think very carefully about when you're going to visit. Obviously summer, long days.
That's right.
Yeah. But
winter, you've got short days.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the disadvantage in the summer, particularly in southern Europe, is that it is now becoming incredibly hot. Yeah. Too hot for me to travel in. And we were in Seville in March, and they were saying that really from the end of April, May, it would start getting incredibly hot. That's right. Now we like the heat, so it's not. But we find that it can be just so draining when you try to travel.
Yeah, you've got to be sensible with the sun as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I remember taking my niece to Italy in August and Rome and stand on the Palatine Hill and it was 40-something degrees. It was not fun. So think very carefully. So I honestly would recommend, if you can, to avoid visiting, particularly July and August, southern Europe, whether it's Italy, Greece, Spain, Portugal. And also that's when a lot of Europeans are on holiday as well. So it will be much busier, more crowds. Whereas if you can try and go in spring and autumn, which we just did.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, if you really have to travel during those times, I would look at maybe not going to the most well-known tourist centres.
Yes, that's true.
Look to sort of broaden your horizons to other towns and cities in a country.
Yeah, to avoid like the amount of people that are going to be there, because it is becoming a considerable problem now in Europe that so many of the popular destinations, for example, Paris, Rome, you just have to think, they just become crazy busy. Another thing I'd mention is winter. We just did the Christmas markets and loved it.
Yeah, we absolutely loved it. I mean, obviously, autumn, winter travel appeals to a lot of people in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That is their preferred season to travel. So, it's not like a second option, summer is the best option, because it really isn't for everybody.
No, and I kind of say that isn't. I would say if you can avoid it, don't go in the summer. Look at spring and autumn. And if you, even winter, if you want to go for the Christmas markets, perfect. I would say January, February are probably the bleakest months in Europe. But if you're a skier, then great time to go.
And you're not a big fan of crowds, January, February, yes, you might be a bit... You've got to be a little bit more flexible with your travel plans, because it can be impacted by the weather.
Good point.
Trains, roads, etc. And not everywhere is open.
Yeah.
Some places will close for those months before reopening again for the summer season. But those factors don't always impact everybody, and it depends on what you want from your holiday.
Yeah, true. But I guess the really good time to go is probably May and then September. Those are really good months generally.
Nice
Spring and autumn are pretty good in Europe. But obviously, another disadvantage, I guess, sometimes at peak time is that there can often be strikes. So air traffic control.
Well, we found that, haven't we? On our
trains, baggage handlers, things like that. Yeah. So just those are things to think about. Also, I will quickly put in there as well, think about if there's going to be a major event in the country or a destination we'll go to, for example, Bastille Day or Oktoberfest. Those will affect availability. So if you're planning to go, know that it's going to be potentially busier. And we often get asked that when people visit London and the London Marathon is on.
Yeah, that's right.
Or treatment of the colour. So those sort of things. So do your research. Obviously, we have got on our website first-time guides to multiple countries. So if you're planning a visit to Italy or Greece or Spain or Portugal, do check out those first-time guides as well, because that gives you a lot of the essential information.
Talk to the experts.
Yeah, absolutely, like us. Okay, so that's point number one.
Big point, that is.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Now, point number two is don't try to do it all. And I think this is one that we sometimes fail because we do try to do too much. But really try to do fewer destinations and enjoy them more deeply.
Well, totally understand, the instinct, if you like, for all of us is, you've got a short trip, we'll try and pack in as much as you possibly can. And we've been guilty of that ourselves in the past. But you've got to take it back a little bit and say, if you bust a gut on the first day and you're exhausted, you're not going to enjoy the second day.
No, that's it. And I guess, I suppose for us as well, though, part of the trip for us is the actual travel. So if we're doing train travel, we may do quite a lot of train journeys in it. But for us, that is part of the actual vacation, the holiday, the trip.
The experience. Stations and trains we love.
But I think, and I know there's a lot of coach tours that go around Europe, and you spend, one day in Paris, one day in Rome, one day in Florence, and they're very fast. And you probably spend a lot of time on the coach. Yeah. So again, but if that's what you want to do, and it's your first trip to Europe, and you really want to go and see 8 countries or whatever, then that's probably the way to do it. We're a little bit more on the slower travel. Yeah. We just spent 6 weeks in Spain and Portugal.
Yeah.
And then we went over to Turkey, and that was nice. That gave us plenty of time to really kind of.
But what we do is, if we got one particular busy day, whether it's something we've organised ourselves or we've been on the tour, we generally try and make the following day a little bit.
Yeah. So not only kind of your overall itinerary when you're thinking about how many destinations you want to go to, but when you're actually planning your itinerary is how much you want to do. So, for example, you're in London for 4 days and you want to do some day trips out. Perhaps you want to go to Windsor, you want to go to Bath, you want to go to Stonehenge. You could end up using all of those days going out on tours, or maybe your best bet is to think, okay, what do I want to do in London? And then maybe having 1 or 2 day tours out and not try to do too much, again, so that you're not spending the whole day on a coach. Unless you take a private tour, then obviously you can cater that to yourself.
Not just the UK, in Europe as well. If you've got a specific interest in a certain area, on a tour might not spend enough time in that one place. But if that's you've got a short length of time and you want to whistle stop several places, a tour is perfect for you.
Yeah. Well, we've just done a couple of tours. We actually did a tour in Morocco, okay, not Europe, but again, that gave us a taste of Morocco, and we know what we'd like to.
It's the first time to that country, so it's a great introduction.
So they could do that, but if you are planning independently, again, sort of think carefully about. We often will get requests where people would like they've got 3 weeks that they're going to spend in the UK. They want to go to England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Republic of Ireland. Well, in 3 weeks, you're not going to do that. I mean, well, you could basically spend a couple of days in each country, but it'd be crazy. So it's just too much. So you have to kind of think very carefully about, what is important for you, and just don't do it all because you're tired, and then you won't appreciate it. Now, the number 3 point is to consider how you'll get around. So we prefer trains.
Most definitely prefer trains.
Because it's a wonderful part of the journey, great way to get around, more environmentally friendly to do that. There are buses and budget flights that you can take in across Europe as well. I mean, we've taken plenty of flights this last trip over with some of the budget friendly airlines.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you're going to do a lot of train travel, for example, research the different rail passes. But do also compare how much it'll cost to go point to point. But some of the rail passes in Europe are excellent. They're really good.
They really are, yes. You've got to shop around, and also consider with that is how much you're carrying around with you as well. Because you might have budget airlines. Yes, the price of the ticket is budget, but if you're taking more luggage, those costs can boost up. And same with some of the bus transfers to coach companies. There is a luggage policy.
Yeah.
And so, you've got to do your homework with each one of those. Don't just go, that's cheap, I'll book it. And then
because actually it can add up. We did take a coach. We took a coach from Seville to Lisbon.
We did.
So we've taken some coach journeys this last trip as well. Yeah. I will just mention, because there's a lot about just taking carry-on only. Now, it depends which country you're coming from. So if you're coming from Australia, we have a very strict allowance for carry-on. But I know other countries like the United States have a very generous carry-on allowance. You will find in Europe it is not generous. It is strict, and they are strict. It's 7 kilograms, and they have a specific size of bag. So I'd be very, very careful. I'd be really think about this. If you're going to be traveling around Europe for a month, if you can really genuinely do that with carry-on only at 7 kilograms, because I definitely can't.
That would be a challenge.
So you have to really think about that. So we'll talk about packing in a bit, but I do get a bit frustrated by this constant kind of obsession and push towards carry-on only. Great if you can do it. Great if you are flying from the States and back again, and you can have a generous allowance. But if you're going to be taking any of those budget flights in Europe, you're going to find that much stricter.
And not just airlines as well. If you're using, even on trains, only carry what you can safely lift on and off trains and on above luggage racks and everything else. Yes, you might be able to get on the airline, but you've got to consider coach travel as well.
Yeah, and train travel it's actually vital. And I know when I took my niece for her 21st birthday around Italy, I was very strict with her about her baggage, that she could pick that her small suitcase up and actually put it on above her head, so that she could keep an eye on it on the trains, because there's issues with luggage go missing. But also that she was responsible for it. And believe me, and we've got podcasts, we've done previous podcasts about this, but there's nothing worse. You start off on your trip and you think, okay, I've got 23 kilograms, it'll be absolutely fine. You will buy things as you go along, for sure. And then believe me, 23 kilograms is not fun. It is not fun to start trailing around
try and lift that above your head.
Trains, or even trying on some of the planes. It was just a nightmare. So I know, because we've just come back after 9 months and we obviously had more luggage, and it makes life so much more stressful and so much more difficult. So really think about that. So when we're talking about getting around, we've talked about trains, we've talked about coaches, we've talked about planes, but I want to talk about driving. So I'm not a massive fan of driving on the right hand side, because it's just something I find really difficult, really stressful. So I tend to leave that to Doug if we're traveling in France or any other European,
or anywhere else for that matter.
Anyway. But any other European country. Now, if you think about, there's a few things to consider. If you're planning to drive in Italy, or planning to drive in France or the UK, so UK is going to be an opposite side of the road than you're used to. If you're coming from the United States or from Canada, for example, Australia, much easier because we drive on the left in Australia. But there are still differences in local driving laws. So
this is tip number 4, driving, but you've got to know the rules, and it's worth doing that little bit of homework before you leave, because driving conditions are different in every country. You may be used to driving 2, 3, 4 plus hours, For example, if you're driving in the UK, that's a lot of different driving experience to what it may be in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. And we say that a lot, actually, because we know, because we spend a lot of time in Australia, and we will do a 10-hour driving day and not really think much of it because we'll share that driving. In the UK,
not straight off, do take breaks.
Yeah, we do take breaks. Yeah. We'll share 2 hours each. But in the UK, it's so much more stressful. It's so much more difficult. Yeah. You've got so much more to contend with. Yeah. And also, if you're not used to roundabouts, for example, that can be stressful. So we recommend whichever country you're planning to drive in Europe, so whether that's the UK, whether that's the Republic of Ireland, whether that is Italy, so you're used to driving on the right hand side potentially, there are fantastic resources that we recommend, and that is Trippiamo. I will put a link to Trippiamo in the show notes. Please use our affiliate link because that helps support us. We've actually had John from Trippiamo on the podcast on a couple of occasions, and I will also link to those episodes. Their resources are excellent and will prepare you to drive in France, in Italy, in Spain, in the Republic of Ireland, in the United Kingdom. And we've had some fantastic reviews back. So honestly, they're not expensive, but to us, they're absolutely invaluable.
Yeah, I mean, we've looked to hire cars in places in different countries because as much as we love trains, they don't go absolutely everywhere.
No, that's true.
So
it gives you more freedom when you've got a car.
Most definitely.
One little tip I will say that if you are planning to hire a car, this is really important actually, is that some countries, for example, the UK, you'll find less automatics. There's far more manual. So if you're used to stick shift, you need to, if you're not used to stick shift, I should say, then you really need to stress that you want an automatic. And it will cost you more, and there are less of them. So just be aware that you will need to book.
Particularly for someone on travel, when there's greater demand for high cars.
Yeah. But also, I mean, you can do a mix because honestly, trains are a great way to get around. But if you want to say, I was in Puglia in November, and in Italy, yes, and I met up with Shelley. So ladies who travel, we do those podcasts every month, and Shelley drove, so that was great. She had a hire car and she drove around, so it meant that we could go to a lot of places we would not have been able to go to by train because there's no trains there to cover it, except for the major cities. Right, number 5, prioritize what matters to you. So when you're creating your itinerary around your interests, consider what those are. So is it art? Do you like castles? Are you interested in food? Do you want to go to beaches? And we say that we have a itinerary planning challenge actually on the UK website, UK Travel Planner website, and that's one of the things we'll say. What are your interests, and then what are your must do's around those interests, and what are your like to do's, and then you can develop your itinerary around that.
Yeah, and that becomes more important when the larger the travel group. If there's 1 or 2 people or solo travel, it's easier to contend with if you push for time on limited holiday time. But the greater the party, the more difficult it is to cater for everybody in that group.
But that's also, I think, what you can do is then you have different on certain days. Part of the party can go off and do their thing, and the other party can go and do another thing. For example, I met Susan, hi Susan, last November in London with the kids, and we went to art museum. But the rest of the family went on a pub tour. Yeah. So you can do that. And actually, when we travel, this is an issue because you go to train museums.
I can't go through York without going to the train museum.
You go any train museums wherever we go. If there's a train museum, you have to go.
I do.
Which I don't particularly have a huge. I'll go and have a quick look, but I'm not as interested as you. But I like to go to see art, so I might go to an art museum that you're not interested in. Exactly. I think if you've got children traveling with kids, it's worth asking them what they want to do. Yeah. And then I think that's a great way to start. So, and also it's about prioritizing what matters to you. Just because somewhere is famous and kind of considered a must do doesn't make it necessarily a must do for you.
That's right.
I mean, this isn't in Europe again, but we've just been to Sri Lanka and Doug climbed Sigiriya, and I went and had a look at it, but there's no way I was climbing it. And I know that's one of those things, people, you should climb. No.
I like the challenge, yeah.
And so also I was aware of my limitations. Yeah. It was very hot. But, you don't have to try and fit in everything that, tick everything off.
That's right. And in Madrid, I went out to the Bernabeu Real Madrid football ground. You had no interest at all in football.
No, not at all. So number 6, again, is book ahead for popular attractions. Really, we can't stress this enough, because if you are going in a popular, busy, high peak season time of year, you are going to struggle to get into some of those.
And you will be disappointed.
Sites. So popular attractions like Colosseum, Eiffel Tower, Sagrada Familia, they get busy. So you need to consider about booking ahead so that you have your slot, you have your tour. Again, another thing that I will say is, do you want to spend your trip standing in a great big line? You want to queue up for 4 hours to go to Westminster Abbey? Because I don't. I would rather have my skip the line ticket, go straight in, do my tour. So I love tours that also have skip the line, because to me it's worth that money, because you've paid a lot to go on a trip. Do you really want to stand in a line?
Yeah. And if you're booking well in advance, and it's sometimes too soon before tickets are released, is do your research and know when those tickets are going to be on sale.
Yeah, absolutely. We do actually have a guide for London for particular, say, when we'd recommend that you book some things. And I know in our articles as well that writing for different destinations in Europe, we will point out when the best time is to consider booking some of these places.
So the next one is try a food tour. This is one area we particularly enjoy, don't we?
Yeah, so point 7, take a food tour and take a food tour early in your trip. This is a great way to learn great local customs, discover hidden gems, and sample some authentic foods. Now, we look for small group options, and we love Devour tours. So we really take Devour tours, food tours wherever we go. We've been in, how many places have we had taken a food tour with them now?
So many.
Paris, Seville, Madrid, London, Barcelona. And we took a food tour last year in Berlin. And if you do it early on in your tour as well, like Italy, I've taken some, Paris. Oh my God, there's so many. If you do it early in your tour, you will find that the guide will kind of not only make some recommendations about where to eat, which is great,
and dishes you'd not have heard of,
or not even you think about trying. It's a fantastic way, and actually we've met so many people on these food tours who've said exactly the same thing. They land in a new place, or they arrive and the first thing they do is they do a walking tour, they do a food tour.
There was a lad from Japan when we were in Barcelona, and he said just the same thing.
And I mean, your food tour is a walking tour as well, so you get to see a lot of the place and learn the history, because a lot of food tours aren't just about the food, they're also about the culture. So you'll learn about the culture, you'll learn about the food
history.
And the history.
Element.
Amazing. Don't be put off if you've got food allergies or preferences, because usually they do ask you.
They do ask you at the start of the tour. You introduce yourself and they'll ask that question.
When you fill that in, when you actually book it anyway, they'll ask you if you've got anything. So they will organise that. So don't be put off. And also, Doug doesn't drink, but it's not had an impact on you, has it?
Not at all. Absolutely not. Again, always ask at the start of the tour, does everybody drink alcohol? Does anybody not drink alcohol? And I'm never the only one. And no, never once.
So you don't feel that you miss out?
No, at all. It's in fact, probably the opposite, because at times you become more of a focal point, and they'll say to you, do you want to try a local soft drink? And they go, okay, I'll try that. And when everybody's doing the cheers, I'm holding up a glass of Coke. And
it suits me, because we can do wine tours without having to, if we're doing driving, then I have to worry about it.
And the plus side is as well, when it's a food and drink tour like the one we did in Paris, the food is absolutely exceptional. That's worth going on alone.
Absolutely. So I would highly recommend food tours with Devour. We've done a lot with Devour. I will put a link to Devour food tours in the show notes. So do go check them out. And again, we do mention the tours that we've taken in the different various destination articles. Number 8, kind of going back again to the packing thing. Pack light, but pack smart. So you've got to be thinking about, like, if you are going to Venice, do you want to be trying to get across to your hotel with a massive great big suitcase? No, you don't. And we've seen this. I don't know, some people seem to have suitcases that are bigger than them trying to get on Vaporetto in Venice. Not fun. Or over cobbled streets. Also, some of the hotels don't have lifts. So do you want to be carrying, your luggage up to the 5th floor, 3rd floor, whatever? In some of these, small little hotels or B&Bs in some of the European cities, I would not want to do that at all.
And I've already mentioned about big luggage on trains, etc.
Yes. So just pack smart. Packing cubes, really, compression packing cubes have been a bit of a game changer. It's amazing how much you can fit in. Again, you've got to consider your weight allowances, but think about a capsule wardrobe. Think about what you want to take. So I always have a pair of sandals and a pair of comfortable trainers. I try to mix and match what I take. So I think very much of having plain colours. I've got a lot of bright coloured plain tops that will go with everything. Again, with trousers, I like crop trousers. In winter, I've got more. I wear thermal tights under sort of black leggings, and they work really well. It's just considering exactly how you're going to pack and what you're going to take. So I want to talk about this actually. I did an episode recently with Melissa and Shelley all about packing. And Shelley actually has done a video of her packing her suitcase, which I will share in the show notes, and worth having a look at because she travels all the time. She's a solo traveller all over the world, and she has got it down pat. She really has. So I think that's really essential to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, the correlation between the weight of your luggage and the season that you're travelling in is obvious. But also, I will add on to that is, if you're travelling to one or two countries, you don't always need to be taking lots of bottle things with you. I mean, obviously, the ladies have different things to the men that carry. But buy stuff in the country you're visiting. You don't have to be taking big bottles of things.
No, absolutely. I don't tend to. I've got maybe take a little bit of shampoo with me for. I've got purple shampoo from blonde hair, but it depends. But I think very carefully about what you're taking with you. And as I say, we've got video. I have got a video of my packing. I've got a video of Shelley's packing. So have a look at those videos as well, and have a listen to that podcast.
And light layers are a big difference.
Yeah, layers are always the absolute key. Yeah. So number 9 is prepare for the weather. So again, check the week before you go, especially if you go to some countries where, like UK particularly, as well, because where the weather can change on a dime. So it's so unpredictable. Yeah. So you do need to check. Now, I always have a light rain jacket with me all the time. It's a little one that packs up, very small. I carry that with me. Yeah. Literally, that goes wherever I go. That goes with me. If you go to somewhere like Southern Europe, it can get incredibly hot. Yeah. So you need to think again about hat, sunglasses, sun cream. Prepare for
a water bottle as well.
Get yourself a water bottle. So prepare exactly, with what the expectations are. Of what the weather's going to be.
And again, flip side, winter, take some hand warmers, things like that.
They're a game changer. Yeah. They have been an absolute game changer for us because, I mean, we were in Sweden, we were in Poland, we were in Finland. Over winter, it was cold, a lot of snow, and hand warmers. My goodness, they are brilliant. So we always take hand warmers with us, don't we? Yep. So that's a good one. So, but do the research the week before, and you might have to adjust your packing. Yeah. Number 10, plan your money strategy. Now, so this is an interesting one because we get asked this all the time: cash versus cards. Now, how much cash have we used in Europe recently?
In Europe?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Europe. Very little.
Very little.
Very little.
Very little, yeah.
The only places we've recently used cash have been in Morocco and Sri Lanka, really, those 2 destinations. That's it. Yeah. Most of the other places, we have used cards. Yeah. We use contactless. That's how we've paid for most things. Yeah. Really
when you're visiting multiple countries, it's difficult to take cash for every country. It's not straightforward.
I mean, we do use a multi-currency card, which we use, which has got currency in multiple destinations, which we use that. We can withdraw cash from that. We found that if we do need it, then we take it out.
Separate cards, we've got different accounts.
Yes. So one thing what we'll do is we've got a separate account is that we'll keep less on his card and he will use his card to withdraw cash just in case there's any issue, so that my card isn't used in an ATM at all.
Question of risk again.
Yeah. We also carry with us at least 2 credit cards each, so that's a backup strategy as well. Yeah. As I say, cash, no, not so much. I know a lot of people like cash. So if you're planning, obviously, tips, then withdraw some cash. Withdraw it once you get into the country that you're going to, and also I will say, please be aware of what currency the country you're going to in Europe uses, because not every country in Europe uses the euro.
Correct. Yeah.
And so you really need to know what the currency is. So, for example, Sweden doesn't use a euro. Poland doesn't use a euro. Hungary Can't remember. Doesn't use euro. So number of countries: France, yes, euro. Italy, yes, euro. Greece, euro. Portugal, euro. Spain, euro. However, UK, not. We have a pound. So you need to be aware of which countries have what. And then if you want to have a little bit of cash, just withdraw that from an ATM. That's the best way to do it. That's what we always recommend.
That's right.
That's what we do. So that's what we recommend. We travel all the time. So that's what we do. Number 11, stay connected with SIM or eSIM. Now I would say more an eSIM these days.
Yeah, I'd say so.
We both have eSIMs.
We do.
I've got a few eSIMs on my phone. You just have to make sure that your phone is unlocked. We use Arolo. I'm going to try a few other different eSIMs just for a bit of variety, because I have heard other people using different ones. We have had no problem with Arolo.
No.
And I've got an Asia SIM, I've got a Europe SIM, I've got a UK SIM. I've got a few different eSIMs on my phone, and they're pretty easy to set up and switch between.
Yeah, between how many countries we've used it?
Oh, I think we've just been to 17 countries, and I had no problems actually connecting. I think the only place we did have problem, and again, it wasn't Europe, was in Sri Lanka, where it wasn't so great, the reception. But in Europe, it's generally pretty good. Obviously, you're going to need it for all your apps and your different tools and staying connected. I will just mention in Europe as well that a lot of tour companies, a lot of hotels will use WhatsApp.
True.
So make sure you've got WhatsApp on your phone. I think that's because that we've used for a lot.
Hotel notifications, what time you expect to arrive, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, you can use that with tour
code for access codes.
Yeah, or tours when we've met up with tour guides and things like that. So that is useful to have. Number 12. This is watch out for scams and pickpockets. I hate to include it, but we have to.
Yeah, I mean it's a part of the modern world, unfortunately, and it's not one country specific we're going to focus on, because unfortunately you get them in everywhere.
Yeah, all the major cities in Europe, I would say, is an issue. London is becoming more challenging now when it comes to phones being snatched, so be very careful. There are just like places like Paris, places like Barcelona, Rome are well known for pickpockets.
Organised.
Very organised. Yeah. So you have to be very, very careful. And I know some people, when I talk about this, put their eyes to heaven and go, oh, yeah, whatever. And then usually people tell me that, oh, no, we've heard these horror stories and we'll be fine. But actually...
And I think what it is once you're on holiday, you sort of take your foot off the gas a little bit and you're very conscious in your everyday life. But all of a sudden when you're traveling, you sort of relax a bit, I don't know, and take your eye off the game a little.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do? I use a crossbody bag. Always use a crossbody bag. We always keep our valuables and leave them in the safe at the hotel. We don't go out with them. I know some countries you've got to have your passport with you, but you can take a photocopy.
We have copies,
with you. Be careful of people asking for signatures or trying to distract you. Look for scams like on Westminster Bridge at the minute with the 3 ball scam. I don't know, the cups that they do. That's all. While you're watching, there's people going around probably trying to pickpocket you. I don't know, but it's all a scam.
It is. Be careful, particularly at big train stations where you're watching departure boards and you're trying to find your way around. A little tip we always give to people when we do itinerary consults is if there's 2 of you travel, one of you only look for that information, the other one keep your eye on all your belongings.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and another scam that I've heard of recently as well is that if you're sitting on your own with your luggage, there may be some sort of altercation.
Organised.
And basically somebody might get pushed over and fall to the floor and then the other people run off and leave them. If you go to help them and leave your luggage, you'll come back and your luggage will be gone.
Yeah, don't be distracted.
So don't. Those are distractions, and they're out to take your stuff. And I hate to say it, but you've got to be careful.
Yeah.
I have had an attempted pickpocket attempt in Paris with my backpack. I had my crossbody bag, everything in it, so it wasn't a problem. I was surrounded on the Paris metro.
We got separated, didn't we?
So I could not move while the gang went through my backpack. Now, it was a pickpocket-proof backpack, but I hadn't secured it because it just had my clothes in it. Still went through it, and I could not move. So I really would just be. I don't want to scare you, absolutely not. But I just would be just pay some attention.
Be savvy.
Be savvy with stuff like that. Yeah. I have also just released a UK Travel Planner podcast all about staying safe in London. So do check that out, and I'll put that in the show notes.
Particularly if you best to watch. I'm going to say teenagers with things in their back pockets, but it's not just teenagers.
No, oh yeah, we've seen this so often. That's a good one to mention, actually, because quite often, if your teenager might be used to putting his wallet or his mobile phone in his back pocket, that will get stolen. Go on the Paris Metro, and you're going to get off it. You won't have that phone in your back pocket.
Yeah.
So be careful.
Be aware.
Number 13, learn a few local phrases.
This is a nice one.
Yeah, so try and learn some basic greetings, please, thank you, in your local language. It honestly can go a long way, and obviously just respectful, really. I have to say, you are really good at this. Melissa's excellent at this.
I'm very good when I'm there, but because I have little aptitude for languages, after I've left the country, I seem to forget most of it.
You do, but I think we'll remember it before you go back.
Yeah,
you just need to practice it. If you've got those words, and again, we've got a little tip sheets with each of our destination guides. On the tip sheet, we've got some words. It is
right, and I think you're dead right. It goes a long way with your shops and just please and your thank yous. It is nice. It is nice that people see you make an effort.
And don't assume everybody speaks English, even in Europe, where you might think, oh, well, everybody speaks English. Well, no, there's obviously multiple languages, but I remember years ago when I was in Switzerland I was an au pair at the time, meeting another au pair, and she was Swiss-German, and she didn't speak English. So I didn't speak Swiss-German, but I spoke French. We both spoke French. So then we conversed in French. So sometimes, having ability to have a few phrases it's just great. And also I would recommend as well the Google Translator. Oh my goodness, that is amazing. That is amazing. I love the visual thing where you can put it on and it'll tell you what it is. We've used that so much. Yeah. But just learning a few local phrases. And, a great way to do this is to watch some TV series or films on Netflix and have some of it in the language. Just obviously this is past the basics, but if you want to do a bit of practice, that's great to do it.
There's language podcasts I did before I visited Wales, believe it or not. Yes. I wanted to learn a few words, and believe it or not, the Welsh is one of the few I do actually remember.
Yeah, all right. Go on then.
So, Boradar, Nosta, Diolch.
Well, there you go. Yeah. They're Welsh there.
Yeah.
Right, number 14. Right, consider when you're booking local accommodation. So understand the different types of local accommodation in the place that you're going to. For example, we have bed and breakfast in the UK, which are great.
That's right. Yep.
So, but there are different types. So obviously, you've got your hotels, your boutique hotels, your Airbnbs, and in Europe there are different types of accommodation that you can book. So just check before you book if there are certain things that is important to you. For example, if you want a lift, elevator, you want air conditioning, you want a 24-hour reception, you can filter. We book through Booking.com. You can filter so that you can get stuff so you can say these are the essentials.
Yeah, and also important when you're doing your research accommodation is if you need it close by to transport links as well.
Yes,
and how you're going to get to and from, particularly if you've got an early stop for tours or leaving or airports or what, is to know how you're going to get there. So, yes, choose your accommodation for everything you've just said, but also
location.
If you need a shop nearby, if you need transport nearby.
Yeah, that's true. And also, before I book, I also check. I usually check book with free cancellation. That's important to us. It is cost you slightly more, but it's just peace of mind.
Yeah, and meals as well. Do you need meals included?
Breakfast. Yeah, that sort of thing. So you can filter by that. And also, I always check reviews before I book anything. I don't book anything that's got less than an 8 on Booking.com because that's who we've been using for years. Yeah. So that's what I do. But just if some things are important to you, like, having a lift or, air conditioning, if you're going to be in in Rome in August, I don't think I want to stay somewhere that didn't have aircon.
Yeah, I mean, we've come across things like it's important that the bathroom is on the same level. There's no steps from the bedroom up or down. And we've come across that before, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, we stayed in a hotel Paris where we had to climb up steps, didn't we?
Yeah, and that's it. If that's very important to you,
then check all of that. So just understand the accommodation that you're booking and what it has and what it doesn't have. Yeah. Now, number 15 is embrace the differences because it is going to be different. We're British, but you go to France, you go to Germany, they're all different. They're all very different cultures with very different traditions, with very different expectations. For example, when shops close or when dinner might start. For example, dinner. I mean, when I was in Greece a couple of years ago, I couldn't get over the fact that they were eating at 10 p.m. at night. That was crazy late.
Yeah.
For me, that was crazy late. But you just have to adjust to it because that's what everybody does.
In the UK, the obsession with Sunday lunch. You might not find that in other countries.
Yeah, exactly. Some places you might go to, there'll be nothing open on a Sunday. Everything will be shut.
Yeah.
And I know actually quite a lot of Australians have said to us they find it really difficult to adjust the fact that they go to places like London or any other big, and things don't start till 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
So nothing's open. So because in Australia things are open quite early, there's an expectation if you get up at 8 or 7:30 you're going to go and everything. No, it's not open.
But the flip side is here things close earlier in the end of the day.
So it's just having that awareness of things are going to be different, and there'll be some things that'll be frustrating, and you go, oh my goodness.
Well, a lot of us are set in our ways, and sometimes you go on holiday or vacation, and you think, well, I'm going to do all this, I'm going to do all that, and then there's little things you think, I like that little bit of consistency, like I'm with my meal times, I'm a bit more set in my ways, and you're always pushing me away from my comfort zone.
I think that's important. I think that particularly, if you're listening to this podcast now, and this will be your first trip to Europe, and wherever you're going to go in Europe, it's going to be different. There's going to be so much, and we get so much about washcloth, so much about aircon, so much about, what are the other things that come? Oh, top sheets. Yeah. There's so many differences. We actually have a whole thing on the differences between like US versus UK on the UK website. And we've done a podcast on that. There are going to be some things that will be so different and so alien. Yeah. Some things you love, some things you won't. But I'd just say embrace it.
Try and smile with it.
Just lean into it. And the different, and you'll come away and go, wow. And that's the whole point, is don't we travel to find out? Well, I travel to find out how other people live in the world. I want to know, because everybody doesn't live the same way that we do and have the same experiences.
Food for me. I like different
food. You like food. I like people on the thing for me. I just want to know how I've always wanted to know how people live their lives around the world. And, it's amazing just how different. We're all living on the same planet, but just how different your lives can be. And the amazing thing about Europe is, it doesn't take you very long to go from one country to another country, and they're all different. Language, food, different cultures, everything. So, just enjoy it. So I think that's it. We've given you 15.
There's one thing we've not covered, and I'm just going to say, just be aware of your electrical devices, the different plugs, sockets. Just do your research as to what country has what time. Yeah,
that's good. For when you're packing, you need to make sure. And so we've got a multi-adapter that we use.
Yes.
But I was going to end, because we always end with the one tip that you give anybody planning a trip to Europe for the first time. And I'm not going to say, so we've talked about 15 and you've kind of thrown in yours. My one is to make sure you have travel insurance. Please, please, please make sure that you have comprehensive travel insurance, whoever you go with, because you just never know what is around the corner.
Expect the unexpected.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's something that we do stress. Please, please, please. I never travel anywhere. We don't travel anywhere without travel insurance. So make sure, we say if you can't afford travel insurance, you can't afford to travel, because you just don't know what's around the corner.
Harsh but true.
It is harsh but true. And it's something that we talked about. I know Melissa, Shelley and myself have talked about that as well. Yeah. So we will stress, please, 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 make sure that you have, and it's not just about cancellations. It's not just about your cancellation of your flight or cancellation of your tour or your hotel. It's about making sure that if something happens to you medically, that you are covered.
And you can get home.
So we'll say that really important to make sure that you have got that cover, whoever you go with. Anyway, I think that's it for this episode.
I think so.
So that's episode, I've forgotten now. It's episode 57 of the Global Travel Planner Podcast. You can find the show notes at globaltravelplanner.com/episode 57. Leave us a message on SpeakPipe. We are loving these messages that you are leaving us. Leave us a message on SpeakPipe if you've got any tip that you think that we've missed out, or anything that you have found particularly useful or resonates with you in this episode or any other episode that we have. Because we love to hear from you. And also go over and join our Global Travel Planning Facebook group. Please come and say hello and join. And we'll look forward to seeing you there and helping you plan and chatting about your travels around Europe and around the globe.
Most definitely, yes.
Okay, well that leaves me to say until next week from myself and Doug.
Happy global travel planning.
There you go.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Global Travel Planning Podcast.
For more details and links to everything we discussed today, check out the show notes at globaltravelplanning.com. Remember, if you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a review on your favourite podcast app, because your feedback helps us reach more travel enthusiasts just like you. Anyway, that leaves me to say, as always, happy global travel planning.